Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Michelle Bradley is with us. You talk about an LPFM expert. She is it. Her life is about LPFM and ham radio and a few other radio-related topics. We're going to give you some great information about applying for an LPFM license and plenty of resources as we move through the show. It's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. Hello, I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Glad to be with you here. We're recording this show actually a little bit early for playback at the normal time. I'm in the Telos Alliance studio. Could you tell? Here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's another hot summer day, although it's where temperatures are slowly moving down as we slide into fall. I just hope we don't have another recurrence. Not another, I think they call it Indian summer. I don't know if that's the right name or not, but I'm done with hot weather. I hope you are too. Well, we've got an extra good show today, something that so many of us broadcast engineers, full-time broadcast engineers, don't know so much about. And I would imagine on this show, when people search for the keyword LPFM, when they search for that term, they're going to find this show. So if you've never seen this show before, This Week in Radio Tech, welcome in. Glad you're here. We're going to talk about low power FM broadcasting. And to do that, I would say, I don't know, would it be appropriate, Michelle Bradley, to call you the queen of LPFM, or is that not a good title? No?
I don't know if I would say that. Right now, these days, I'm kind of the caretaker of LPFM.
Well, okay.
There's been a lot of people, a lot of queens and a lot of kings that have been involved with the service over the many years, especially at the beginning and around the Local Community Radio Act. They all deserve credit. And I'm just happen to be the one who's carrying a majority of the regulatory torch right now for the service.
So I understand that some years ago you founded a company called REC. Your website is recnet.com, recnet.com. And plus you are an advocate for LPFM. You are a liaison with the FCC. You work on getting legislation and rules passed. You work with the NAB. How do you describe what you do? You get on an elevator, somebody says, "What do you do?" What does Michelle Bradley say she does?
I just tell people that I am the national regulatory advocate for the low power FM radio service, and I work on other spectrum issues that deal primarily with citizens' access to the airwaves.
There you go. Citizens' access to the airwaves. That's an interesting way to describe LPFM. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what.
But I also get into other things. I also get into non-broadcast things. I get into amateur radio. I get into GMRS and MERS and just any way that people could use, that could have spectrum and be able to, use radio for whatever purpose they need to use it for.
Would you, Michelle, say that your background is more in being on the air, creating, or regulatory, or engineering? What kind of what skill sets would you put together to make Michelle Bradley?
I would say it's more of a regulatory kind of trying to learn as much as I can, especially on the regulatory and legal side. Obviously, I'm not an attorney, nor do I play one on the radio. I'm also a software writer, so I've written my share of, mainly online stuff, everything across the whole entire REC Network's suite of websites, which is probably one of the things I'm probably the most known for by members of the engineering community, is really because if they use fccdata.org, if they use the fcc.today website, well, that comes out of this shop. Really?
So fccdata.org,
Mm-hmm.
that actually comes from you.
That's my site.
Okay. And the other one was what? FCC what?
FCC.today. It
Okay.
is actually a dashboard site where you can go on there and you can watch all the activity that comes through LMS, that comes through the FCC on the Media Bureau side, and just sit there and watch it. It's a refreshing screen. It refreshes about once every 15 minutes. You can look at the applications that have been filed today. You can look at the applications where an action's been taken on. We have the information on the various daily releases that come out from the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a whole entire system behind the scenes that's actually going through and grabbing all these applications, reading the information off the applications, and in the case of FM, it is immediately updating fccdata.org with the application information. Which
Interesting.
Is,
I'll put those in the show notes, and if we get a chance a little bit later in the show, I'll pop those up on the screen. Michelle Bradley is our guest, and as usual, we're going to get right into a quick message from our friends at Nautel. And let me pop that up on the screen here. Nautel, if you're new to broadcasting, and a lot of you watching today, this show about LPFM, you may be kind of new to some of the things in broadcasting. And I want to tell you about this service from Nautel. Now, Nautel makes transmitters, AM and FM transmitters. They also make HD radio systems and DAB systems for digital radio in the U.S. and other countries. But one thing that they do, totally free of charge, it's a great service to our industry, is Transmission Talk Tuesday discussions. And these are free. I wouldn't call them webinars. They don't call them webinars, although to get to the site, you go to nautel.com/webinars. All right. But the Transmission Talk Tuesday discussion specifically isn't a webinar. It's a roundtable discussion. And that means that you can participate. You can submit questions in advance. You can raise your hand during the roundtable discussion when it's live and get your question answered. They have subject matter guests. And hey, we've got 3 new roundtable discussions that are now scheduled. So let's look at these 3 that are coming up. September 12th. Getting the most out of your SBE membership. You can join newly elected board member Jeff Welton as he discusses how to maximize your SBE membership. You can register right here at nautel.com/webinars and then click on Transmission Talk Tuesdays. And then next month in October 17th, Transmitter Site Considerations Part 1, Antennas, Lines, and Combiner Inspections. And then October 31st, Halloween, Transmitter Site Considerations Part 2 for air handling and cooling. I highly, highly recommend these Transmission Talk Tuesday discussions. They are just terrific. And Jeff Welton is typically the host. He's also going to be talking on the first one. He's kind of the expert guest on the first one. So check him out, nautel.com/webinars. And I want to thank Nautel very much for sponsoring, being a partial sponsor of This Week in Radio Tech. Thank you so, so much. All right. Our guest for today is Michelle Bradley. Welcome, Michelle. And I'm not sure where you want to begin our discussion of LPFM, maybe with the news that's coming up, or maybe you just want to give us, what is your elevator speech when somebody says, I've heard of this LPFM, tell me about that, and how maybe it's helpful to people, radio, me, our organization, people who are like-minded to me, whatever it may be. What do you tell folks about it?
Well, LPFM is very much a utility service. There is several applications for it. The community radio model, where an organization decides, hey, we want to inform and educate and entertain the community. So we're going to go ahead and put in a station and operate. There's organizations that are formed just for the sole purpose of running the stations. When the FCC created the service back in 2000, the original idea was it was going to be well-established community organizations, human service organizations, civil rights, media justice type organizations, existing nonprofits, as well as there's a very significant number of faith-based operations, the various churches and ministries that operate stations. We have a significant number of stations that are run by Catholic organizations, by Seventh-day Adventist organizations, a lot of Hispanic ministries, a lot of minority ministries that are out there right now that are running stations. There's also a utility for this service in public safety, with county and state governments and city governments actually applying for stations and operating them as emergency services. And there are special rules to allow that, and those were first created back in 2000. And a lot of that was on reconsideration because the New York State Thruway Authority wanted to replace their AM facilities with FM. And so during that first window back in 2001 and 2001, a lot of states filed for stations across their entire state. And unfortunately, back in the mid 2000s, there was a lot of economic issues that were going on. There was cities and counties were declaring fiscal emergencies, and they were having to cut back. And that was one of the things they cut back. And a lot of these statewide emergency networks were never built. The one in Colorado was kind of half built. I think Colorado is really one of the only states that has any significant, somewhat semi-statewide presence, and even that's a very small presence on LPFM. But because state governments and any government organization or any non-government organization with a specific public safety purpose could actually apply for as many stations as they wanted within their jurisdiction.
Wow.
Where with educational organizations and institutions, the limit is one.
Actually, you stumbled or brought us into a good point. What are the key points of who can have an LPFM and what can they use it for? And maybe specifically who cannot and what can you not use it for? What are the general bullet points there?
Well, the general bullet point is that there's really three major classifications of who could own an LPFM station. They can be licensed to any educational organization or institution, nonprofit. They have to be certified by the state as a nonprofit. They have to have incorporation status. There is a way in if you're an unincorporated association. Catholic churches a lot of times are unincorporated associations, but there's a whole layer of lawyering that's involved with doing that. But your organization has to be an educational organization with an educational purpose, with educational objectives, and that you have to make a showing that the radio station will advance your organization's educational objectives. Now, for an educational institution such as a school or college, the colleges or the school's accreditation, their state or private accreditation, is usually all that you need to get through. Now, that's basically the first bullet point. The second bullet point is the public safety. And in public safety, it's just that you have to be a public safety, public sector agency, county, city government, transit district. Even the Maryland Transit Authority here in Baltimore actually owns LPFM stations. And so you just have, and then also to non-government that has, for example, like a compact or a contract with the county or the state, can also apply for providing public safety services. An example would be a volunteer fire department, which is a separate nonprofit corporation still. The third is tribal. So any tribal tribal government can actually have up to 2 stations.
How does let me hit the I'm producing today. Suncast is busy. There we go. How does LPFM relate to what I grew up knowing as the Travelers Information Service, TIS? So you drive toward the Dallas airport and, they'd be running a loop of audio information. Sometimes they'd update if there was something interesting to say. Any relationship there in their use?
Well, the nice thing about a public safety operated LPFM versus a public safety operated TIS station is that you don't have all of the Part 90 content restrictions on LPFM. The Part 90 rule regarding TIS is very strict on what you can say. You cannot give brand names out unless they're like airline carriers and such. I mean, the rules are very specific on what you can do on a TIS station, where on an LPFM station, even one that's run by a public safety agency, you could say whatever you can say whatever you want, non-commercial nature, of course, and you could play music. You could run city council meetings. That's something you cannot do on TIS.
Oh, okay.
You can run, yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. What you mentioned Colorado? They have probably the most built out, even if it is here and there. What are they typically programming on that for public safety?
The last I heard, these stations are just mainly rebroadcasting NOAA weather radio. That was the last I heard. That was the last report I heard, and that was like several years ago. So I don't know if or what they're doing right now. But
they could be used to announce a bridge closure or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, they could be used to break into that at any time. Now, the one I'm really impressed with is the public safety station that's operated by the Maryland Transit Authority, because what they do is they during the off hours they run like a jazz music format, but on the peaks they have talk programming, and they also give out transit updates. So if trains are delayed, if buses are delayed, they give out all the detour and delay information over the radio. I think they're the only transit agency that does that.
And now LPFMs, talk to me about intended coverage area and the usefulness of a public safety that maybe you want to cover a larger metropolitan area. Is there some way to square that circle?
Well, the only way you could really do it is as long as there's room in the spectrum, and that is to apply for multiple stations. So the effective range on perfect flat earth of an LPFM station that's not being interfered with by anybody else is probably going to be about 3.5 miles. At least that's the distance to the service contour. Although your mileage may vary. We used to have a WHCP out in Cambridge, Maryland, which is exactly 20 miles from here. And sometimes there was one little sweet spot where I could hear them in the driveway. And that's 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And that's on a day when we're not getting the tropospheric ducting coming in from the Western Shore.
So well, just to put this in context, what are the current power and height limitations for LPFMs? And then I'd like you to tell us about where you'd like it to go.
Well, LPFM is it's a 60 dB contour of 5.6 kilometers or 3.5 miles. So that equates to 100 watts at 30 meters height above average terrain, and 100 watts is the maximum right now. There is a petition for rulemaking that's been filed by REC Networks that would increase the service contour from 5.6 to 7.1 kilometers, or about 4.5 miles or so. And that would be 250 watts at 30 meters height above average terrain.
Okay. Well, as an engineer, I'd prefer 250 watts at 30 meters. And also as an engineer, I know that height is better related to distance than power is. And so, sure, I don't want to interfere with the next service on the same frequency or an adjacent channel, but just a cursory look at it, I'm in favor of 250 watts at 30 meters. You certainly would get better building penetration in your service contour, and that could be important too.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things we're selling it on is the fact that we are, over the years, we have had many stories come in here about building penetration issues. We've heard from the stations where they're trying to reach a nursing home, and you have to go to one side of the building in order to hear the station because you can't hear it on the other side. Just because of the building penetration issues. And that's where I think LP 250 is going to help.
Gotcha. Well, and we all know that line of sight is so important. I'm part owner of several radio stations myself. We've got a couple of translators. Now it falls under a different set of rules, and they're typically higher power. One of our translators is 250 watts, and I think the height of the tower of the antenna is on the order of about 200 feet above the ground, and using a nice log periodic antenna about 35 miles away, we pick it up well enough to hear it fine and check on its quality. Height is good for distance. Power is good for covering where you cover, where people can hear you, like in the nursing home you mentioned.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, we're talking to. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michelle.
I was going to say, in a combination of the both, if you can find that sweet spot and try to take advantage of both things, then you got a good thing.
And sometimes I remind people that we talked from the moon to the earth with 75 watts, but it was line of sight, and the receiving antenna was pretty big. So, but it was only 75 watts. Oh, hey, why does LPFM need 250? The astronauts only needed 75 watts. We're talking to Michelle Bradley. She is an advocate, a national regulatory advocate for low power FM as well as other radio services as well. I'm Kirk Harnack, and you're listening or watching to This Week in Radio Tech. Michelle has more cool information for us about LPFMs and about the application window that's opening very soon. And we're going to give you a peek at a couple of the websites that Michelle mentioned earlier. Right now, though, our show is brought to you in part by some amazingly cool people in England. It's Broadcast Bionics, and they have this fantastic system for various systems for doing broadcasting, not really changing what you're doing now, but letting you do it a whole lot better. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter and display all platforms in one place and post text, images and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
Big thanks to the Bionic Studio from Broadcast Bionics for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech and for providing some very cool and useful solutions to us as broadcasters and content creators. So check them out at bionic.co.uk, bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. And there's plenty more stuff there. All right. We are doing today's show with Michelle Bradley. Michelle, glad you're here. And I'm not sure where you want to go next. We're going to talk about this this application window, I suppose. Tell me why that's significant and what that means to people who want to get an LPFM station.
Well, the filing window, which is going to be coming up between November 1 and November 8 of this year, is the first opportunity in 10 years for any organization to apply for an LPFM station. So obviously there's a lot of folks, we get calls all the time for the past 10 years saying, how do I start a station? How do I, how do I get one of these things? How can we get one for our organization? And well, now is the time. You have a 9-day window there to get your applications in. And then once that's done, it may not be another 10 years until there's another one.
Wow. Okay. So if a group watches or hears this podcast and says, yeah, we want to do that. Is it basically too late to get that done right now? Or is there time to get an application in for this?
Oh, there's still time. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's absolutely still time. I mean, we're still accepting intake at REC. There's others out there that are also in the LPFM business that are also taking care of things. We still have. We're still more than a month and a half away here. So yeah, there's still plenty of time. You just got to make sure that you have your organization, your nonprofit organization, is together. That you've got it. Also, too, if you have an existing nonprofit organization, make sure that it is in current good standing with the state. What we're seeing is we're seeing some situations where nonprofits are coming to us and others and saying, hey, we want to do this. And then when we look up their information with the state, and it turns out they haven't filed an annual report in a few years, and their corporation status has lapsed with them, and that corporation status has to be good at the time of the window. Otherwise, the FCC could dismiss the application.
I want to go ahead and show this website on the screen here, Michelle. Hope you don't mind. This is your website. Mm-hmm. REC. What does REC stand for? REC.
Very long story.
Okay.
Very, 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 very long story. And I guess, this goes back to the days of when we did, REC started 40 years ago, actually. It's actually started in July 20th of 1984, actually. And we started with running telephone entertainment lines in Southern California, recordings that you could hear over the phone. And these were long form talk programs and things like that. And we had a separate phone number where people could leave messages. They leave comments talking about whatever's on their mind. And then once or twice a week, we would take those comments, put them together, put a little bit of semi-slick production, given the limitations I had in that era, mm-hmm. and together this weekly 30 to 60-minute program that people can just call up and listen to. The recording was played on a auto reverse cassette deck with an old telephone coupler, so that way you call in, you join the recording already in progress somewhere, and then as soon as you hang up, the system knows that you hung up. The relay will then turn off the auto reverse cassette deck, and then the next person who calls in, they pick up at the recording wherever you left off.
Oh my goodness!
So
wow.
That was, and we did about 200 of those recordings back in those early days, and then I eventually went on to running interactive systems where the interactive voice bulletin board type services where you can call in and use a touch tone phone. You could leave public messages, private messages. You could, you could do online. You could do conferencing. I mean, in some ways, we were kind of we were the social network before there was MySpace or any of this modern day stuff. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So this website, LPFM letters. Those letters are plastered all over it. So tell me about what people can do with this website.
Well, recnet.com is really the main website for REC, and mm-hmm. There is a treasure trove of information in there in regards to LPFM, in regards to full power stuff. We have a toy box with all kinds of little engineering toys to play with that I've designed over the years. And there's, just a lot of things that you can do there. But that's just the main REC website. And on there's links to some of our other sites like FCC Today and fccdata.org. We talk about lpfm.app, which is our site that we're using for the intake for this LPFM window. That's where parties who are interested in starting an LPFM station, they can go to. And then we go through, we read them the Riot Act. Mm-hmm. And I believe in full disclosure. And I run through this and I say, this is what you're really getting yourselves into. are you sure you want to do this? Because what we found in the past is so many people that get excited to start these stations, they go through the process, they file the application, they get the construction permit, and then the sticker shock finally hits them. And they don't realize, oh, wait, I've got to rent a tower site. I've got to get insurance. The American Tower wants insurance. They only want me to use their tower riggers. Wait, what is this about that I've got to pay BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC once a year? Oh, the sticker shock that just comes out after the excitement of getting of filing and getting the construction permit wears off, and unfortunately we've seen some LPFMs fail. Oh, wait a minute, I can't run commercials? Oh, that's another one.
Yeah. I got to say, and it's worth at least me pointing out, as a broadcaster myself and as part owner of about 14 commercial radio stations myself, look, we realize that there are other broadcasters and there's other voices out there. We just want, as a commercial broadcaster, we pay bukus, lots of annual fees with the FCC and lots of ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, fees so that the rights holders get paid for music that we play. We just want other people to follow the rules too, and we realize the rules may be a little bit different for some people, and that's okay too. But you got to follow the rules.
Absolutely, and that's one thing that we're very hard pressed on is rule compliance. There's an REC compliance guide that's out there that goes through the whole process of underwriting announcements, what you can and can't say. There's a lot of misunderstandings, and there's a lot of things that people won't do because they think they're not supposed to, but they actually can. And so we kind of get into some of that. And we talk about a lot of things on there. We have at the REC website, we have the self-inspection checklist. We rewrote it and made it a lot less demystifying than the FCC version, which actually has not been updated since 2007. Back when there was a 10-watt LPFM service on the books. So that's pretty much it. But the page that you have up there right now is the show of interest form. This is how we filter out the requests that come in, because how many calls I get over the phone? I want to put an LPFM in Chicago. I want to put one in Brooklyn. And, we obviously can't put them in these places.
Yeah.
So you go through, you put in the information here. It's going to give you a yay or nay answer, and then you're going to fill it out as we ask for some information, and I ask about the organization, and so that way I know what I'm looking at when the request comes through. But that's how we do it. It just goes right through our systems. We have our own CRM that I've designed that handles the whole entire experience from beginning to end. It's a 5-stage process, and we used the same 5-stage process in the NCE window a couple of years ago. It worked great.
Michelle, I don't know if it's an accurate analogy, but it's worked for me a few times to explain to people interested in broadcasting what they likely can and can't afford right now. And one thing I tell them is that, look, owning a gas station on the Las Vegas Strip would probably be pretty profitable. I mean, there's a lot of cars there. Some people may look at their gas gauge and realize, oh, I'm about empty. And they may, before they start that trip back to Los Angeles, they may want to fill up. But the price of acquiring a gas station on the Las Vegas Strip is going to be prohibitive for almost everybody except Steve Wynn, right? Who owns casinos there. But if you want to buy a gas station in West Undershirt, Arkansas, you can probably do that. And you might be able to buy it on a credit card. It probably won't be too terribly. Now, the gas tanks may be out of compliance. There may be some fix up to do, but you can afford it. And when I mention to people, hey, I'm part owner of 14 radio stations, none of them are in big cities. The biggest one we just built in Oxford, Mississippi, and it's not even licensed to Oxford. It was licensed to a nearby town. We moved it in. We still city grade the city of license, of course, because we legally have to. So So you're not going to be able to start with the top of like you said, a New York or LA or Chicago low power FM. It's probably not going to happen. But you run way out in the suburbs or somewhere else. I mean, where there's people to be covered everywhere. People live. People live everywhere.
Absolutely. I mean, we're hearing from rurals. We're hearing from a lot of places. We're getting we're getting a lot of requests from Puerto Rico. I mean, we're handling everybody right now. Like I said on another interview, I said everything from Puerto Rico to Hawaii. We've got them coming in from all over the place, and a lot of them are rural. We are getting some suburban. I'm not going to say deep urban, but I will say suburban requests where we can actually do it. And so,
Michelle, hey, we're going to take a break. When we come back, I got a couple of topics I want to make sure we get covered. One of them is how do you help people find out, can I fit a station here? Will a station, because there are rules about separation, mileage separation or signal level separation from other existing FM stations. And so there's rules about that. We'll see how you can help people with that. And then I'd also be curious to understand when these days when streaming is relatively easy to do, although not all of your listeners may have easy internet access. I take it for granted, but plenty of people don't have easy Wi-Fi access to the internet. But how can streaming and LPFM ownership go together to help better serve a community of people, or the people that you want to target? We're talking to Michelle Bradley. She is a national legislative advocate for regulatory advocate for LPFM and for other radio services as well. I'm Kirk Harnack, and you're tuned into This Week in Radio Tech. And I'm gonna share a different screen here with you as soon as I can bring it up here. And that is if you want to build a radio studio, well, one of the things you can do is check out this pretty inexpensive audio console that has amazing features, fully professional. This is called the Rave console. It's an analog audio console that's easy to hook up, and it's from my friends at Angry Audio. And they really are my friends. The guy who owns Angry Audio used to be my boss years ago, and he's designed other audio consoles. And he said, you know what? I'm going to take my knowledge of designing high-quality audio consoles, and I'm going to design a low-cost audio console. This one is so easy to hook up, so easy to connect. There's a video here about the Rave console from angryaudio.com. And look, on the back, the connectors, I know they all look like, computer networking connectors. These connectors are, yes, they're RJ45 connectors. So if you're familiar with, computer networking, you're familiar with the physical layout of these connectors. But these follow the Studio Hub standard. And what that means is that you get to run analog audio on computer Cat5 cabling, and it works terrifically. Turns out Cat5 cabling works great for analog audio, even microphone level audio, even that low-level audio from a microphone. And so what that means is this console is easy and quick to connect. You can even buy the cables pre-made if you want to. You do want to use shielded cables because this is audio, and it's just great. It's just great to hook up and use. It has big console features. For example, it's got, let me click that off. There we go. On-air indicator lights up when the mics are on and the monitor's muted. It's got 2 stereo mix buses, program and audition. It's got preview or cue on every input. Channels 1 through 4 can be microphones or line level inputs, so you can switch each one between those. The on-off buttons are slightly recessed to prevent accidental actuation, and there's plenty of consoles that don't have that simple yet effective technique. These faders are just amazing faders. I got to play with a prototype of this just a couple weeks ago at the Angry Audio office, and I love this console. It is so easy to hook up, so quick to hook up, and the audio specs are absolutely fantastic. So check it out from angryaudio.com. Their website, angryaudio.com. I like their slogan on this console. We didn't cut any corners, but we did round a few. We just rounded a few corners. All right. Hey, our show is also brought to you by my friends over at Max Connect Wireless. Now, what's Max Connect for? Well, I'll tell you what it's for. If you can get one of these hotspots to go at a transmitter site, or to go do a live remote broadcast when you need internet access in places that are otherwise hard to get to. And I'll tell you, that access through an ordinary 5G hotspot, that's not very guaranteed. You're not guaranteed much of anything. You're guaranteed some data. It should work, but the speed isn't guaranteed and the packet delivery isn't guaranteed. So let me let you hear from my friend Gary Morrill on why Max Connect Wireless really works well for broadcasters. Gary?
I'm Gary Morrill, Midwest Regional Director of Engineering for Alpha Media. When I first spoke with Josh Bone about Max Connect, he told me they'd work great for remote transmitter sites where connectivity was a challenge. And he's absolutely right. We even have sites where we're using this as a backup to our STL using Max Connect's dual carrier option, and it works perfectly. We also have times where we need to be able to get out to a venue where it's kind of challenging because everybody and his brother is trying to stream video at the same time, like at a big sporting event. And you know what? Our data gets through every time because it's prioritized packet data. It works for us. It'll work for you. Max Connect. Check it out.
Thanks, Gary. And Max Connect, I know it's spelled funny because it's the internet, and there's not many names left. So MAXXKONNECT, Max Connect Wireless. Also, if you need to build a radio station, the Max Connect group can do that. They have engineers throughout the U.S., mostly east of the Mississippi, but they have engineers elsewhere too, and they can handle your project with aplomb. Terrific people at Max Connect Wireless. All right, I'm Kirk Harnack on This Week in Radio Tech, broadcasting from the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee. And my guest, Michelle Bradley, is here with me. Michelle, again, welcome back. Glad you're here. Wanted to ask a couple of things. Let's see. One of them was about if you want to produce programming for a group of people, and you want to stream that's fine. That's not so hard to do these days. What benefit do you have when you maybe own an LPFM and you stream the programming as well? Any particular dovetailing there?
The big advantage, of course, is that the LPFM only has a certain amount of reach. And if you obviously if you drive past the service area, suddenly you lose the station. Now, fortunately, there are applications and things like that people can do. For example, I'm a huge fan of radio DNS. And, we've incorporated radio DNS functionality here. I've met up with the folks at Radio DNS at the last NAB. We've been working together for the past year or two to get things together. REC does provide as a free service, actually, to all LPFM stations through our My LPFM portal. We do provide a basic radio DNS service. Now, what radio DNS does is it puts it's for visibility, and it puts your radio station information into a database, and compatible equipment can retrieve that information, including your station's graphics, program schedules, and such like that, and other metadata, and that we use it for. And right now I think it's Volkswagen. A lot of the German car manufacturers are currently putting radio DNS in their vehicles. The radio DNS platform is public. So anybody can develop, any manufacturer can develop on that. Actually, the fccdata.org website is actually radio DNS compatible. If you go to a radio station that has radio DNS, maybe like KIIS in Los Angeles, KISS FM, you'll see that our system will go out and pull up the radio DNS data, and then it will put it on the screen. So we have we get the graphics and everything that radio DNS has. For some stations like Capital Radio in London, it actually includes program schedules. But there's we're a huge fan of radio DNS over here. We're also a huge fan of the DTS AutoStage, which is another good system. But the one nice thing about radio DNS is you set up radio DNS, so that way if you're listening on a radio DNS compatible device, you're driving a Volkswagen, you're driving an Audi, and then suddenly you leave the service area of the LPFM station or other station that has radio DNS, the radio will automatically retune and go to the stream. So that way you don't have to do anything once you lose the station. I think that's some great functionality, and the nice part about it is it doesn't really cost you anything. It doesn't cost the station anything to deploy it. All they need is RDS on the transmitter.
So
all they need to make it work.
Let me see if I've kind of got this idea straight. And this is especially helpful for LPFMs that have a pretty limited coverage area. So if I'm tuned into an LPFM station that is also streaming and they're tied in, registered with radio DNS, and I'm driving a car that's got a radio DNS compatible radio in it. All those things need to be together, but that means I'm tuned into your LPFM station and I drive to the edge of the coverage area and beyond. The radio says, oh, there's a stream for this. Let me go get that and play it.
That's how it works.
And oh my
It
goodness!
goes just the opposite the other way. You come into town and you come back in the service area, drop off the stream, and go right back onto the over the air.
That's fabulous. And radio DNS. We've had actually a show or two years ago about radio DNS and haven't talked about it much since. So thank you for that reminder. All right. We'll put links in the show notes. We got so many links in the show notes for this show. A lot of resources you're bringing up to us. Oh, golly. What was the other topic I wanted to ask you about? Let's see. Besides the dovetailing of over the air and streaming. I'm sure.
Now, of course, also too on the streaming piece. People need to realize, of course, that if you're streaming, you also have to pay all the licensing fees to ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and you also have to pay Sound Exchange.
Yeah.
And so that is, so it could get pretty costly. For some LPFMs to also stream. Of course, there's alternative services out there like Live 365 is one that actually, if you have a very low amount of streaming, if you're not getting a lot of hours of streaming in, you could probably get together something that's fully licensed for about $59 a month. And you can add a fully licensed stream on there. I think you have to opt out for Live 365 advertising. I think it's like 4 minutes an hour or something like that. But you pay a little extra. You can have it without the advertising.
Gotcha. And advertising on your stream, even if you're an LPFM, advertising that is only on your stream, that's allowable, isn't it?
That is totally allowable.
Okay. So an LPFM could help cover their costs by on their stream, they run, real commercials or make other types of advertising kind of announcements that they can't run on the air on the LPFM, but that can help defray their costs.
Yeah, I mean they can do that. That's of course they have to have the right equipment to do the inserts, or they have the right equipment to to break off the streams. I've got two automation systems here that I think can do it. So,
well, in fact, why don't we chat about that for a minute? I didn't know until an hour ago when we first started chatting before the show that you have in your office there both Rivendell and Playout One. And Rivendell is a free open source automation system. It runs in Linux. It's best if you're a little bit familiar with Linux before you try to use it. I used it for some years. We liked it. It's very powerful. We ended up switching over to the other one that you have in your office, Playout One, which has, I think, a lower cost version and then a pro version. My stations all run the pro version, but I would be quite confident that Playout One is fully capable of, covering certain ads, for your. I mean, playing ads on your stream and playing not ads on your LPFM.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Playout One Pro is that with the version 5 that just came out, they've just added the new audio engine in there, and we're licensed for a 4-station audio engine over here. Right now, we're only running one, but you could run You could run multiple programs, then through some Xlog function. I mean, through some Xlog functioning, you can actually bridge the two stations into in together, and that way you can run the same thing. So there's if you work it out right, there should be a way that you could be able to do opt-outs in that. We kind of do something similar with Rivendell. We have in the Rivendell we have a what is it? It's an old M Audio 1010 LT card, which is it's a PCI card. That's how old it is. And we can do, it's got an 8x8 bridge on it, so we could we could bring audio into there and route it around. And we used to have it so I could hit a button and it could route to the board over here, so I can put it on any. We're running right now 4 audio services off of that Rivendell. Various J1, which is mainly which is Japanese language music content that we're running on there, including one of the stations which is running right now terrestrially in California on an LPFM station on an HD subchannel.
Hey, we're going to run out of time before we run out of content. I wanted to take a quick look, if you don't mind, at this website that you mentioned earlier, fcc.today. Now, and I want to point out, hey, this show, and thanks again for joining, this show, we're covering a lot of LPFM topics, and there are plenty of people that want to know about LPFM, and they're not real technical people, and that's fine. That's why people like Michelle Bradley and her organization, Rec Networks, exist to help take you through that process. But if you are into what the machinations going on at the FCC, if you need to check in on things like, I just happened to notice that a new low power TV has been approved for Tutu in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands. Maybe I should go help them out. But let's take a look, Michelle, at this website, fcc.today. Tell us what happens here at this website. This is fascinating. I didn't know about this until an hour ago.
Yeah, this site actually originally started the functionality for this actually goes back to the 2013 LPFM window. I put in some systems that would frequently check the FCC back in the days of CDBS, because I wanted to see the grants come in for the low power FM window, and we actually had something that would take that and post the grant information to Twitter. So as soon, within 15 minutes of a grant taking place on LPFM for the window, we tweeted about it. And over time that grew, and I started bringing in all the other application types, and the FCC.today was born. And since the conversion over to LMS, we've moved over to LMS. Mm-hmm. And we still get the data in real time. What the system does is during the day, it goes out every 15 minutes to the LMS public view, and it just basically records the screens, and it just says, okay, here's what's here's what's out there. It goes to another system that checks to see, okay, do we already have this? Okay, if not, then the system will actually go out and pull up the application. And it will read the application, turn it into data that's stored in our systems. It's stored in what we call our Enhanced License Management System, or ELMS. And then that information can be used by any of our applications because it's in the database. But what it does is we have this unique ability that Radio Locator doesn't have, not even the FCC's FM query has, where if somebody files a FM application, we can usually have the information into fccdata.org within about 20 to 30 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
We don't have to wait till the next day for the FCC's daily download dump to happen. Yeah. But we get the information right away. And we're actually bringing in, we're basically bringing in all the administrative apps, anything that doesn't involve engineering from across AM, FM, and TV. We're bringing those in that way. We're also bringing in the FM engineering applications in that way. We haven't done AM or TV engineering yet, because each one of those has its own little complexities, but we've got a modular code that we just build a template, and it reads these applications. It goes out and does contour maps. We use the FCC's contour API to get all of our contour maps. There's a lot of good engineering data, a lot of good engineering tools that are available from the FCC through API form. So you've got to have, if you code it right, you can do that. We've got a height above average terrain tool on the REC website. We're actually working on a new version of that'll come out probably by the end of this year. That will actually take into consideration the 73.313D rule, where if you are located very close to the ocean and you don't want to take the whole 16 kilometers out on your height above average terrain among one radial, you could say, okay, no, the coast is at 4.9 kilometers away. Just give me the height above average terrain in that section of the radial. And a lot of times it'll allow you to lower your height above average terrain and raise your power.
Oh, okay. Wow, so many adjustments that can be made to it's interesting how we try to maximize what we can do within a set of rules, and the rules, oftentimes well designed and certainly well meaning. But if we can maximize what we can do and stay within the rules, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That's the one thing I do here is I go through these, I study these rules, and I look for every possible loophole that I can, and I try my best to exploit them in a very legal way. So, you got to take advantage of what's out there. And, sometimes the FCC does not agree with my interpretations of the rules or with the Local Community Radio Act. But, I try to make good points. And that's what we do here. And we've been able to get some rule changes over the years. We've been able to get a few good things added for LPFM stations, more flexibility. One of the things I've been wanting is much more technical flexibility. And I think that was one of the things you were talking about a little earlier, now that we brought that up, is how LPFM stations protect other stations. Okay. And for LPFM, it's actually very simple. Everything is a circle.
Oh, okay.
Everything is a circle.
Okay.
It's all distance separation, kind of like commercial FM. And but we don't have a 73.215 type of rule, even though I asked for it. I did ask for it a few years ago in RM, was it 11810? And the FCC thought that was too complex.
So terrain separation isn't a thing with LPFMs?
No, unfortunately, it is not. It is strictly distance separation.
Okay.
And a part of that distance separation requirement is also because it's a statutory requirement as part of the Local Community Radio Act.
Ah, okay. All right. So that's burned into law then, into the
that's
statute.
burned into law in respect to full service FM stations, but it's not burned into law in respect to translators. And that was an issue that the FCC is having a hard time grasping onto, that the LCRA does not require specific distance separations for LPFM to translators. And trust me, there's a little bit of flexibility that we could use there if we had that ability to use contours between LPFMs and translators.
We are talking to Michelle Bradley, and obviously, man, you can get a lot of information, valuable information, talking to Michelle. We're gonna take one more quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some final words from Michelle about LPFMs and what's could be available to you for filing for one, and the next steps that you may want to take. So, our show is brought to you in part by my friends over at Broadcasters General Store and an amazing product called Vox Pro.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. So literally 3 clicks on the controller, mark left, mark right, everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
Ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound caller 9.
I'm ready, St. John.
One of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
Jury duty, huh? Well, I'll tell you, St. John is definitely guilty of being enthusiastic about Vox Pro. And if you want Vox Pro for your station, believe me, your on-air talent does, contact Broadcasters General Store. The website, bgs.cc, or call them at 352-622-7700. Why do I have that number memorized? Because it's important to me. In fact, I just called them yesterday and ordered a new Axia audio console. How about that? So thanks a lot, Broadcast General Store, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. We are here with Michelle Bradley. Michelle, I'm so sorry. We've just got a couple minutes left, and I need your best words of wisdom for those interested in LPFM. What do you want to say?
Learn about the service, learn the rules, and get to know the community radio community. I'm just going to put a plug out there because we do have the Grassroots Radio Conference that's going to be coming up in Charleston, West Virginia from October 19th through the 22nd, just before the LPFM window. That wasn't planned that way. We planned the conference before the LPFM window, but information will be at 2023grassrootsradioconference.com. If you're just starting out, this is the boot camp to go to learn everything. I'll be doing presentations there. There will be technical discussions. There'll be station management, productions, business, and everything, engineering, everything across the board for small radio stations, for small non-commercials, and for LPFM stations. So it's worth a shot. And just again, learn the rules, know what you're getting into, and have all your ducks in a row at the time that you file. And those are the key things. And, don't make any fatal mistakes, because you can't fix a fatal. A lot of things can be fixed, but there's only a few that are fatal.
And Dr. Bradley is here to determine what's the difference between a fatal mistake and a non-fatal mistake. You've been through this a few times, so.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Well, that's
and for those for those who just want to watch the action after it happens, recnet.com/window is our window tracking tool, where we're going to keep track of everything that goes on in the window. We're currently right now doing the NCE window right now. We're at the very tail end of the NCE window. So, but that's a good place to keep up with what's happening after November 8th.
Good deal. I will put all these that I possibly can. I've been furiously taking notes here. We'll put them in the show notes because we've covered a lot of websites quickly here, and there's a lot to check out. If you're interested in LPFM or any broadcasting, anything, and the format that you display things at what FCC Today, FCC.today, that's nice. I'm so glad to know about these resources you've put out there. I'll be visiting them a lot more frequently now that I know about them. So that's awesome.
Yes.
All right.
We have FCC staff that uses that site.
I'll bet. It's quicker than our own systems.
They say it's better than anything that's in-house.
Well, there's different motivations in the design. One is designed by a contractor fulfilling a contract. The other is designed by you who, needs useful information at your quick fingertips. Right? Yeah. Different motivations.
Probably FCC Today's biggest fan.
That's cool. Michelle, I want to thank you for taking time out and working at your schedule to work me in to talk to me and our people here, our listeners and viewers. And hey, if you're new to this show, subscribe, and you might like some future shows that we do. We do some fun shows. We do some in-depth technical shows. We do some shows on troubleshooting and how to find common problems. We've even done shows on how to solder XLR connectors, and that's actually one of the most watched shows we've ever done. So you never know what you're going to find, but it all has to do with radio, audio, broadcasting, things like that. Michelle, thanks again. I wish you wish you some good night's sleep during this time coming ahead. You may not get them, though.
No, there's been a lot of sleepless nights. There's nights that I'm just tired but wired. So it's there's a lot going on right now, and it's only going to get crazier until the shoe finally drops.
I hear you. Michelle Bradley, thank you once again. Appreciate you very much. I'm Kirk Harnack, and I want to thank very much Suncast, who goes back and produces this show. Thanks, Suncast. Hopefully Chris Tarr will be with us next week. We got a couple of good shows coming up. In fact, if things go right, if I play my cards right, next week I'm going to be in person with John Bissett in Charleston, South Carolina. And John, you may know and love him from his Workbench column in Radio World Magazine. John's a wonderful engineer and just full of fantastic advice. He collects advice from you, other broadcast engineers, and shares it with everybody. So we're going to be talking with John Bissett next week on This Week in Radio Tech. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.